Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Nerd Week Live, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about nerd news that has happened over the past week since our last show last Tuesday. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, known as first-person shooter on Facebook and Instagram as a cosplay photographer, Burley_adopter on Twitter as a general tweeting of things person. It's going to be a German word for that. They like to put those words together. Anyway, before we get into our show for tonight and some of the topics that we have on our roster, I, of course, want to talk to you about the fact that one of the ways you can watch this is on Twitch. That is our URL on the screen right there, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber. In addition to YouTube and Facebook Live, we do stream this weekly on Twitch. And if you have a Twitch account, we'd love to have you follow us there. Trying to build our numbers on Twitch to the wonderful levels that they are on Facebook and on YouTube. So twitch.tv/nerdcaliber, please check it out. So, our very first topic tonight is one that we don't often discuss, or a topic area that we don't often discuss. And that is basically computer hardware and technology. But because that's definitely nerdy, and an awful lot of the stuff that we do here as nerds wouldn't really be possible without computers, I think it fits. Today, NVIDIA announced their 4000 series graphics cards, the 4090 and the 4080. They will be available in prices ranging from $900, $899, for a 12 gig 4080, $1,200 for a 16 gig 4080, and all the way up to $1,600 for the 4090. The performance of these things, according to NVIDIA, are insane. The 4090 by itself, without the TI edition, the 4090 would perform 2 to 4 times better than a 3090 Ti, which is, up until these cards come out in mid-October, pretty much the fastest video graphics card for gaming that you can buy. That's big news. Everybody's been expecting it. There's no real changes to what everybody was expecting as far as pricing. The fact that the top tier is a little bit more expensive than the 3090 was when it was first announced by $100. A little bit of a surprise. Everybody figured they would come in about the same price, but it's a much faster card. It also, before anybody has any intention of running out to get any of these things, you would probably have to replace your power supply. It will draw 450 watts at peak use. And if you have anything like a reasonably, recent generation, say within the last 2 years, CPU, particularly an Intel CPU, that's going to suck up anywhere between 200 and 300. Meaning that you wouldn't be able to power anything else inside your computer if you had, say, a 700 or probably even an 800 watt power supply. They recommend 1,000 watts minimum, and it should probably be higher than that. So, you're going to turn your computer into a kilowatt power drain system if you want one of these cards, and spend $1,600 to do so. Plenty of people out there that are going to do it. Good luck and all speed to them. That's not really the news from this week about this, though, and that was yesterday a bunch of video and technology YouTubers, or video game technology YouTubers, dropped the news that they were privy to. They were the only ones privy to it. That one of the largest, what they call add-in board manufacturers of video game cards for NVIDIA, EVGA, is no longer going to be working with NVIDIA. Now, for EVGA, for a company, now they have other things that they make. They make power supplies and so on. But EVGA is an acronym for Extreme Video Graphics Adapter. And they didn't deal with any other processor makers like Nvidia. They didn't deal with AMD, and certainly Intel is just getting into the game. So that's it. They are not going to be making video graphics adapters of any kind going forward. And the CEO of the company told, it was Jay's 2 Cents and Gamers Nexus, in a private meeting that he had with those two YouTubers particularly, that mainly this is because NVIDIA is really a bunch of jerks to work with. Not a direct quote. And of course, all allegations by the people at EVGA. According to both Gamers Nexus and Jay's 2 Cents, this is stuff that they've been hearing about NVIDIA for years, that they are way more difficult to work with than any other supplier of any kind of processing unit, whether it's graphics or anything else, than any other company in the business. So that's absolutely huge. That's 80% of their revenue, EVGA's revenue, came from their NVIDIA graphics cards, which means the company is now cutting its revenue by 80%. It'll be a 20% of what it used to be. And they're apparently doing this without any layoffs. They assume that there will be attrition. And that's, okay. And they did do some layoffs, probably in anticipation of this, in the Taiwan facilities earlier in the year. But they don't anticipate any layoffs from this, and I'm not really sure how that's going to happen. But if it is, good for them for committing to their workers. All power to them. That is a pretty huge bit of news and surprising change in the PC peripherals and parts world. And announcing it a day before NVIDIA was making its big announcement about, the actual release of these new, 40 or 4,000, as they call them, generation video cards. It was very interesting timing. I'm going to say, as somebody who has reported on tech business for decades, prior to going 100% with Nerd Caliber, the cynic in me says this is some kind of ploy, because if you follow the major use of video graphics cards over the last couple of years, the crypto mining industry collapsed a couple of days ago when the cryptocurrency Ethereum moved from what's called proof of work to proof of stake. I don't want to get into what all that means. Basically, that means that mining, by running, 1 to dozens of video graphics cards to solve complex math problems to show you put in the work to help build the blockchain and therefore get a little bit of cryptocurrency in exchange for doing that work, is gone. It's just doesn't work that way anymore for Ethereum, which was the one that everybody traded because nobody could get Bitcoin. It was just way too valuable at this point. And so Ethereum was the next largest in volume, and therefore the next one that almost all crypto miners went after. Gone. And Ethereum made this choice to drastically reduce the excessive power drain being made by crypto miners, and the strain is putting on the power grid. And I said I wouldn't explain all of that, and I just did explain some of it, but there's way more to go into detail about how that works. Suffice to say, the video game used, or the video graphics adapter used market is going to get flooded, absolutely flooded, with 3000 series, 3080s, 3090s, and so on, graphics cards based on NVIDIA processors. And EVGA, is one of the biggest manufacturers of those, probably has a ton of them in box, brand new, still in warehouses or on store shelves, waiting to be sold. And so the cynic in me says this is just a ploy to make a artificial scarcity. You know, they're not making video cards anymore, so you'd better run out and buy those 3080s and 3090s that are suddenly going to be less expensive because the 4000 series cards are coming out from Nvidia, to get all that product off their shelves at a price that will not lose shirts for them. They'll probably lose money on everything, but not to the extent that you will expect it to happen once these 4000s actually really hit the market. So maybe they're market manipulation, they're doing price manipulation, and then maybe at the beginning of the year when the 4070 gets announced, they come back and said, hey, you know what, we worked it out with Nvidia, we're best buds, and we're back in the game. And they've sold the bulk of their backlog of 30 or 3000 series cards. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going on here. I know nothing about the people behind Nvidia except what I hear in YouTube videos and what I read in articles, and they seem like they're people of their word. So this may be a real thing. This may be a company that no longer does video graphics adapters at all. We'll get back to this at sometime January, February, or March. I'm not saying I'm right, and I hope I'm not, but yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I've been reporting on tech companies for decades. Anyway, moving on to more entertainment-focused news. This is an image, of course, from Blade Runner. The news is that the series Blade Runner 2099, which we had reported on back in February as being of interest by Amazon Studios, has been greenlit by Amazon Studios. And as we reported back then, Ridley Scott will be executive producing with his Scott Free Productions. But also, as we reported back then, that one of the other production companies involved is Alcon Entertainment. Alcon Entertainment is the company that made The Expanse. So you've got the neo-noir futuristic Blade Runner series set 50 years ahead of Blade Runner 2049, or in the future of 2049, it's Blade Runner 2099, and it's going to be co-produced by the studio that created The Expanse. I mean, I'm in anyway. Ridley Scott's behind it. It's going to be Amazon money. Whatever story they come up with, there's plenty of content there for them to mine, to further develop into a 50-year on, technology jump and world building jump. But then putting in the people who made The Expanse to make it as realistic and believable and lived in as possible. Yes, please. Could suck. Who knows? This doesn't say at all when we'll see it, but it went from we're really looking at this with the idea of it fast tracking a production in February to, yep, it's going to be a series in September. And that's pretty quick. So I'm thinking this is going to be sometime early 2024. I could be wrong. It could be late 2024. But if you look at the turnaround cycle of the Amazon run seasons of The Expanse, it took them about 1.5 years to get one season out from under its belt. And that was in the last couple of seasons during COVID. So, yeah, I'm pretty hopeful that this will hit in early 2024. That it will take them about 1.5 years to get this whole thing ready for us to see. No announcements at all, of course, yet about what the story is going to be, who's going to star in it, anything like that. But just on the information we have alone, I'm super excited about this. Now, I'm not quite as excited, but I am still excited for one particular reason about this next topic. And that is what you're seeing right now is a screen grab from a teaser, I guess what they call proof of artistic concept for the announced Genshin Impact anime that is coming up. So the developer Hoyoverse, which makes Genshin Impact, has announced that they're going to be doing this anime with the animation studio Ufotable. And if you're not familiar with them, they are the studio behind the massive hit Demon Slayer. One of the best studios at integrating 2D animation with 3D animation, making CG animation not look like horrible looking, Berserk 2016 or X-Arm or anything like that, CGI. It looks like, hey, how did they make that 2D animation work like that? That's what Ufotable is best known for, particularly with Demon Slayer. And they are going to be bringing that skill set to Genshin Impact. Now, I don't play the game. I can recognize some of the characters based on having taken photos of cosplayers and having them explain to me in depth how awesome the game is. So I don't really know what the story would be, and it's a video game, so it doesn't have a narrative that it can draw from. Hoyoverse made this announcement and calling this a long-term collaboration project that has begun. Now, what that tells me is that they're at very early stages. Maybe they want this to be a very long ongoing series, and that would be great for everybody involved who's big fans of either Genshin Impact or Ufotable or both. But it also tells me this is going to take a while for this to get off the ground. You remember the video game adaptation of League of Legends, Arcane, took 6 years to make. Now, granted, the animation of Demon Slayer, they've been able to turn, Ufotable's been able to turn around new seasons and movies and so on about every year. Maybe a year and a half with COVID in one gap. But that's based on an existing narrative story. That's based on a manga. There are multiple chapters already out, and everything that they have made so far as an animation has been based on one particular arc of the manga. So somebody's got to write all of the narrative, the story that will be the basis of this Genshin Impact anime, which is why I think this is going to be, 2024 at the very earliest, probably 2025, before we see this. Now, Ufotable is wonderful at turning things around quickly. Who knows? And if they can do it without adding to the awful standards of work for people in the animation industry in Japan, then by all means, please, that would be wonderful. But if they do turn it around quickly, I kind of imagine that there's going to be an awful lot of crunch time and work to death mentality, which is still everywhere, almost everywhere in the animation industry. Fingers crossed that that's not the case. And fingers crossed that this turns out to be really interesting. Again, I know nothing about Genshin Impact, about its lore, about its world background, or anything like that, because I don't play it. But there is lore there, and there is a world that has been really well reviewed by people who review RPG games. So, yeah, let's hope it turns out to be something really cool. Go watch the trailer if you're interested in looking at beautiful concept. At times it has a little bit of a Breath of the Wild sort of look to it. At times it's way more complex than that. The backgrounds, the moving backgrounds are just gorgeous. I mean, there's animation of moving grass. It's like, this isn't going to be in the actual anime. Come on. Even Ufotable, as good as they are, isn't going to put that kind of effort into moving background grass. Maybe I'm wrong. It could be one of the most beautiful things that's in an upcoming anime season, but we'll have to see. Again, like I said, no announcement of when this long-term collaboration, which has just begun, is going to see any kind of fruit. My guess is 2025. One thing that we do know when we'll see, and the date for this has changed, is Kraven the Hunter, the upcoming Sony movie based on Spider-Man intellectual property that Sony has the rights to. Sony made an announcement in which they changed dates for all kinds of movies in 2023 and 2024. It didn't change any dates for anything that's currently scheduled for 2022, so that's pretty good. And there's a lot of things that they moved around that aren't technically nerd, so, like, I'll mention one, Brand New Karate Kid is set for June 7th, 2024. There's nothing attached to it, director, actors, anything like that. The Disney Haunted Mansion, which I guess is nerdy, moves from March 10 of 2023 to August 11. But moving out of January 13th, 2023, so 4 months from now, into October 6th of 2023 is Kraven the Hunter. Now, this does have a lot of people assigned to it. Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ariana DeBose, Russell Crowe. It's pretty well into pre-production, and I would assume actually filming at this point if the original release date was January of 2023. But that's moving all the way to October. Now, moving out of October, scheduled for October of 2023, October 6, 2023, was the other Spider-Man rights movie that Sony was making, Madam Web. And that is starring, oh, come on, they didn't put it here, and Dakota Johnson. There we go. And that's moving from February 16th to February 16th, 2024, from October 6th, 2023, which is, of course, now the Kraven Hunter date. Now, I got to call out deadline for this article. They played fast and loose with the description of Sony property, Sony movies based on Marvel intellectual property, as opposed to, at one point they called the Kraven the Hunter movie the Sony/Marvel Kraven the Hunter. It is not being made by Marvel Studios. The only Sony/Marvel collaborations have been the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. This is, and is described in another article accurately, as the fourth installment in Sony's Spider-Man universe films. And that would be Venom, Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, Morbius, and of course then Kraven the Hunter. So, yeah, it's... Get your description straight, because you almost got me excited there. I was like, wait, did I miss that this was actually a Marvel Studios production? No, it's not. And so hopefully it'll be, better even than all the previous three. It's got to be better than Morbius. There's nothing ever made in the Sony, or in the Spider-Man universe, ever, and I'm including Japanese Spider-Man, that's worse than Morbius. So... yeah, it's got to be better than that. And it's got Aaron Taylor Johnson, so, how can they go wrong? He says, after having seen the original American Godzilla. Anyway, moving on to yet another adaptation. In this case, it's a big sequel announcement. Keanu Reeves is coming back for a sequel to Constantine. And because in this case the character is an American, not British, I'm going to keep calling it Constantine, and not, as we learned if you've watched The Sandman, that spelling, according to Neil Gaiman, should be pronounced Constantine. Constantine it is when we're talking about the Keanu Reeves LA-based American version of John Constantine. But yes, Warner Brothers will develop another installment of Constantine currently just called Constantine 2 in the IMDb listings. Directed by Francis Lawrence, who directed the first one as his first directing debut, went on to direct I Am Legend, I, Robot, the last 3 Hunger Games movies, is currently wrapping up the Hunger Games prequel, the Ballad of Songbird and Snakes, and is in pre-production for the BioShock movie, which we talked about a few weeks ago. So bringing those two back, it looks like it's going to be really solid. It is going to be written by Akiva Goldsman, who's written an awful lot of stuff, most recently known for being one of the primary drivers behind the Paramount Plus Star Trek explosion of content. Was the executive producer on Strange New Worlds, executive producer and showrunner for Star Trek Picard, wrote a number of Discovery episodes, and was executive producer on Discovery, but then, wrote a lot of stuff, some of which not so much. Written a lot, developed the Titans series. So if you like that, yay. If you don't, he's the guy that, had Robin say F Batman. But going way back, he was also a writer on many, many episodes of Fringe, which is one of my absolute favorite TV science fiction series. However, he also wrote the story for Transformers The Last Night and the screenplay for the Stephen King adaptation of The Dark Tower, so meh. I'm hoping this is going to be one of his better ones. He has his ups and downs, clearly. So we don't know, or I don't know exactly when we might see this. This was literally just announced. However, it was announced with all of these people involved. Oh, and J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot is also going to be an executive producer. Which leads to the fact that J.J. Abrams, who we had reported was working on a Constantine TV series or streaming series, as well as an adaptation of DC Comics' Madam X, HBO Max has decided, nope, that's not going to happen. Now, Warner Brothers Television, which was one of the producers, along with Bad Robot, of those potential series, is still very much committed to it, according to this article in Deadline, and they are, both Bad Robot and Warner Brothers Television are looking to shop these. Now, DC content that didn't wind up on Warner Brothers has had a tendency to wind up on Netflix. Now, granted, that's so far been all Neil Gaiman stuff. The Sandman, and then once Fox dropped Lucifer, it went to Netflix. So Lucifer, both Neil Gaiman properties. Constantine is I believe Warren Ellis created property. Might have been Garth Ennis. I have to look that up. But let me go back here and find that, because I don't want to just put that out there and have it wrong. There it is. Constantine. Characters created by Garth Ennis. So I don't know whether that means that it'll get picked up by Netflix, or it might get picked up by AMC, who did Garth Ennis's Preacher. You never know. But they're going to be shopping it around. So hopefully those two series won't die off. If Keanu Reeves is committed to a Constantine sequel movie, who knows who they're going to get to play Constantine in the streaming series. It would be great if it was Matt Reeves. No, that's Keanu Reeves. Matt, oh crap, I can't think of his last name. We always just call him Matty Ice. Anyway, the actor who actually played him in the short-lived live-action series, and has done the voice of Constantine, actually, and also played him for a couple of seasons, in Legends of Tomorrow, the CW series, and has voiced him in every iteration of him in the DC animated universe. That would be great if they could actually get him, but who knows? All right, so last topic. This was like huge news on Twitter and everywhere else. We finally got an actual look at the sequel to Breath of the Wild and the name and the release date. Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be called The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. As you can see from the art style here, and if you've watched the trailer, you can definitely tell it is 100% a Breath of the Wild sequel, at least in style and what seems to be gameplay. And we also got a date. It will launch May 12th, 2023 for the Nintendo Switch. I don't have a Switch. I'm not a console player. I'm a PC player, so I'll have to see when I could actually get a chance to play this. It looks as beautiful, maybe even more so, than Breath of the Wild. It has all sorts of hints about the story in it, about what the title means, about who you might be playing. It might not be Link. It's really fascinating, all the speculation out there about what this game is going to be. They do say that this looks an awful lot like Skyward Sword in the fact that, as you can see, you've got a lot of Sky Island platforming that would be part of the game, not just sort of parkour climbing and so on that was more typical. I mean, yes, there are kites and so on, but climbing towers was way more typical in Breath of the Wild. So we'll have to see exactly how this game plays out. I'm imagining they're going to do some pretty creative changes to Breath of the Wild, because they don't want to just make a sequel that has exactly the same gameplay and you're just doing it in a different environment. But we'll have to see. And obviously, we don't have to wait long until we do see. It's going to be, May 12th, 2023. I wish I had more to bring to the table about this. Again, I've not played Breath of the Wild. I don't have a Nintendo Switch. So I'm not going to be playing Tears of the Kingdom. The one thing I will say, based on what I've read, is that the kingdom may not, in fact, refer to Hyrule or Hylia. It may be that ancient kingdom that's referenced in Breath of the Wild that is the source of all of the sort of vaguely Central or Mesoamerican hieroglyphs that's all over the place, called Zonai. Go back here and see if I can get this. Zonai. Or the people are called the Zonai. Maybe the kingdom is also called the Zonai, or Zonai. The artwork, the logo for this has a sort of an Ouroboros worm that really looks like some of the petroglyphs or hieroglyphs that were found, these Zonai relics that were found in Breath of the Wild. So maybe that's what the Tears of the Kingdom refers to. The tears, the fact that they're no longer around. It may have to do with you discovering something very important about the Zonai. But who knows? All of this will be answered probably earlier than May 12th, because there will be trailers and teasers, and people will be picking them apart. People who know more about this stuff than I do, which is close to nothing. But they'll be able to tell you exactly what is going on, or what they think is going on in the game. And if you don't want to hear about that, just wait till May 12th, and you'll be able to get it then. All right, folks, that's it. That is our show for tonight. Before you head off, let's have you, if you would, of course, take a look at our Patreon page. It's up on your screen right there, the URL, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. We would love to have you be a patron if you are of mind to do such a thing. We only have 3 tiers. We have $2 as the lowest tier. We take that money that we get out of Patreon and we use it to go to cons and get you more content, which goes up on our our website at nerdcaliber.com. We've got galleries. We're in the process of finishing up our Dragon Con galleries, finishing up our Colossal Con galleries, starting our Colossal Con East galleries, I should say, starting our Granite Con galleries. And then, in addition to that, we have reviews and so on. My spoiler-free review of the first 4 episodes of Andor, which premieres tomorrow, is up on the website, nerdcaliber.com, right now. So if you're interested in that and you don't want it to be spoiled, go check it out. I'll give you the skinny. It's really good. If you like Rogue One, you're going to like this. Since it was created and mostly written by Tony Gilroy, who wrote the screenplays for pretty much all of the Matt Damon, Jason Bourne movies. If you like those Bourne movies, you're going to love Andor. So anyway, check it out. We will see you at an upcoming con. We'll see you at our show next week. In the meantime, do please stay safe. Despite what our president has said, what is it about presidents and making bad statements about COVID? The pandemic may be over in the sense that it's defined as a pandemic. COVID isn't over. It's the number 3 killer in the United States, folks. COVID. The number 3 killer in the United States. So, wear a mask if you're going to a convention. Be safe, please. Don't get COVID. And do get your bivalent booster shot. Get that Omicron super booster as soon as you can. And we will see